What's up, YouTube? It's been quite a while, but I'm back today with a deck profile of the Runick Spright deck I played at my locals last night. I went undefeated, and I just wanted to show kind of where the most recent iteration of this deck has gone, because I think it's really good, and I think it's a little underexplored by a lot of players, which is unfortunate, because I think that the Spright cards are really cool, and I've been having a blast playing them. Prior to the I think it was like right before right before Oceania's championship, I started playing Spright. Prior to that, I was playing the Tier Limits deck, and I wasn't having consistent results with that. And I found that there was just a lot of variance in like my performances and things like that. So I wanted to play something steady, and while it's not the most powerful deck in the room by any means, it is certainly the most consistent deck I've played in a long time, and I really like that. I like being able to play every single game. So I've been enjoying Spright. I've had mostly some pretty solid results with it. I think I've only had one tournament where I lost more than once. Generally, I've gone undefeated. Last night was pretty small. It was only 4 rounds, which, isn't the greatest testing, but that's fine. I played against Phantom Knight, Spright Adventure, the Runick mill-out deck, and then Tier Limit Danger. I won every match. I only dropped, I think, 1 game, 2 games the whole night. And one of them was just down to me misplaying. Then was just down to one of them was in the mirror match, or the Adventure Spright matchup. I just got outgrinded. I wasted some of my resources early, and the other one was against the Tier Limit Danger deck, and that's because he was playing a more powerful engine, and he was allowed to play, and that's kind of just one of the things that happens. Is that deck is certainly more powerful. It does more unfair things, but I like the Spright deck because it's so much more adaptable, it's so much more consistent, and it's just very steady, and I like that. So I'll go over the basic deck and kind of give you guys my thoughts on it. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below. I'm looking to be a lot more active in my content creation. I have a new series I'll be starting here very soon, and I'm looking forward to being back. So please let me know what you guys are looking forward to seeing again. I would love to make more content to grow my channel again. So first up, for the Spright engine, or just the engine cards in general, we'll go engine and then non-engine. So for the Spright engine, you have your 3 blue, of course, searches out all of the Spright monster names. 3 jet. I actually think jet is better than blue, because jet can become either a name or like the Gamma Burst or the Smashers, and then in Darkwing Blast it can become the Trap, so it just has more flexibility. So I actually could see this one being the one that gets hit over blue. But 3 jet, and then 1 pixies, 1 carrot, or 1 red, and 1 carrot. I always get these two mixed up. 9 names, which is pretty standard at this point, I think. I've been a big fan of pixies. I think that card just offers quite a bit of utility for the deck, and it gives you the ability to answer large monster threats without having to go into your extra deck, so you can have more toolboxes there. And it's kind of, I view it kind of like old BA, like when you only had so many names. You just needed to play more names to be able to play more often, so that was good. And then 3 starters, 1 smashers. Because I'm playing the Runick cards, I don't need to play multiple smashers, even though generally I would agree with doing so. I felt that this card became worse with more removal in my deck, because I had more efficient forms of removal in destruction and flashing fire and things like that. So just 1 copy of this. It was pretty solid. I mostly use it to, at this point with this version of the deck, I found I mostly used it to dodge their negation. I would just activate an effect. If they would go like an effect failure or an imperm or something, I would chain smashers to banish the target, and then I would get to resolve its effect. 1 Iperia. I think going forward I may end up actually playing more copies of this, because I found that this was just an incredible normal summon. And it also just makes it so that way if you drew your Swap Frog, or with your Ronin Totem pack, like if you draw this engine, Hyperia gives you a good card to summon off of Gigantic. If you already have access to both of these engines, a lot of the times the summon off of Gigantic would feel redundant. So Hyperia just gives you an additional card to summon that then nets you another free card. And in subsequent turns as well, Hyperia can just become more free cards off of Elf. Like if they don't necessarily force your Toad negate, you can just summon back Hyperia off of the Elf, draw a card, and you could draw another hand trap. And there's a lot of hand traps in this deck too. So that was very good. Then for the Runick engine, there's 3 tip, 3 flashing fire. This is the monster destruction. 3 freezing curses. This is the effect negation. 2 destruction, which is the back row destruction, and then 1 fountain. Fountain is, in my opinion, very negligible. Obviously, drawing 3 cards is insane, but I found that most of the time, just getting to these utility cards is actually more valuable because they provided me with threats outside of the battle phase. They provided me with threats that weren't necessarily in the extra deck. And on top of that, the information you get from banishing the top cards of your opponent's deck can be invaluable heading into games 2 and 3. And even in game 1, if you open, like if you start and you open up with one of these to get Hugin, and then you have Tip, and you actually Tip to search, and you banish the top card, and you see that they banish like a Sharon or something, or they banish a Danger, or they banish a Sprite Red, or whatever, you know, specific engine cards that get banished, or they banish a Martha, then you know how to build your field to combat that a little bit more, which I found to be very valuable. Even in, you know, a local setting where I kind of know what they're playing, I was still kind of treating it like a little bit of a blind test, where it's like, oh man, I banished this random key card to a certain strategy. Now I know that they play that. I can build my field according to that. So that was the engine part of the deck. And then for non-engine, it's very simple. 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, just a very generically good hand trap right now, as everybody knows. 3 Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. So one of the reasons why I like Ghost Bell more than DD Crow right now is that Ghost Bell can stop Totally Awesome if they would be if they'd be going to negate a monster effect that isn't a Link monster, because it has the ability to special summon the monster face down on their field, and so Bell can stop that. You can also stop opposing DD Crows, which I found to be very valuable, because a lot of the time, many opponents will hold their DD Crow for when you tribute your Toad and you try to get back off of the Elf. So being able to stop that was really good, and this is also still just good against Tearlament. It's solid in mirror matches, it protects just kind of everything. And then 3 Nibiru, the Primal Being. This has just been a card that I've been playing a lot lately. I still dislike Nibiru in theory, just as like a kind of a dead draw most of the time, and in this format especially it can be, but I've found that so many players are just not respecting Nibiru because it became less common that I've gotten many free wins just off of my opponent not realizing that they need to play around Nibiru. And then 3 Infinite Impermanence. So you'll notice too that the hand trap lineup is a little bit smaller, but if you count all of these Runick spells, these utility ones here, like Destruction, Freezing Curses, and Flashing Fire, you actually have 20 total cards that are actually just utility cards into your opponent's deck. And then you also have Carrot and Red and Smashes as well. So you actually have more cards that just allow you to pick apart your opponent's field. And that's what I like a lot about this deck, is that it gives you more forms of removal, it gives you more agency on the field, and it has a higher value the longer the game goes, because even though you're not necessarily killing them, you know, through your battle phase and stuff like that, they're going to run out of cards, and eventually you can just stop activating cards and swing for game. And that's how a lot of the times I was winning games, was I would just run you out of cards, and then I could just start attacking and you were dead. So that was the main deck. It's 42 cards. I know I'm usually a big proponent of 40 in these kinds of, you know, like consistency focused decks, but you have so many cards that essentially are the same thing that you can get away with playing 41, 42, and losing that 1 to 3% on any specific card usually. So then for the extra deck, you've got 2 Hugin. Hugin is very good. I found that it was honestly my favorite part about it was when they would negate it, and then I could just used my blues and my pixie, or my blues and my elf and my gigantic and things like that, knowing that they didn't have that negation card in their hand anymore. But this just searches out the field spell. It's also really cool because it can actually protect you from Ghost Ogre, which is a very commonly played card. Now you can just summon this in your extra monster zone, and then you can, you know, summon a gigantic down here. If you activate gigantic, you can't, and they try to ogre it, because then, you know, if gigantic isn't on the field, or if there's no Xyz monster on the field to detach material from, they don't get the effect. So if they ogre it, you can actually just Hugin protect it that way. And that didn't come up last night, but it has come up in testing a little bit. And then one Moonin. This is generally just for time, or getting closer to time. And also there were times where I found I just needed an extra body, and sometimes just sitting on this in defense position, gaining life points can be very valuable. For the Xyz, you have 2 Gigantic Spright. I don't think I need to explain that. This card's insane. 1 Toad, 1 Sky Cavalry, 1 Onimabaru. I found that I was summoning this card a lot more in this deck than I was in regular Hand Trap Sprite. And that was because I could, you know, destroy their back rows and I could negate their effects, but I still wanted to keep removing their cards, and just having the disruption was very valuable. And then Downward Magician and Zeus for the Xyz monsters. Zeus loses a lot of value in this deck because you are skipping battle phases, but I still wanted to have it there just in case, you know, if I'm drawing and I'm essentially just playing Sprite, sometimes you just need to have the big Zeus in the field. And also, one of the cool things that I found was that mid-game, if you summon a Zeus and they're still alive, and they start destroying your cards, you can start sticking quick play spells under it. And if your Fountain is on the field and you activate any of them, you can just draw 3. Or you could just, you know, you just draw a bunch of cards for no reason, and that was really good. One thing that I did not think I was going to be a big fan of, but ended up being very critical, was 3 Spright Elf. So in this version, I found that 3 Spright Elf would come up a lot more than previous versions where I was playing just hand traps and like Cosmic Cyclones and things like that. Because a lot of the times you can Hugin and summon a dude, and then you can either make Gigantic Spright, which, you know, is a little risky, but you can sometimes make Elf, and then Elf bring back a thing, and then you make the Gigantic into that. And there was just games where like having the 3rd Elf would come up a lot. And then the last 2 links I played were Dark, which I think I summoned once, just to like summon back their DD Crow, and Access Code Talker. Access Code Talker actually never came up. I just felt like I might need a win condition in a big body, but it never actually was needed. So I think I might replace the Access Code Talker with a copy of Jerry. And what Jerry does is, when it's destroyed by battle, it can just pop 1 card on the field. So sometimes, you know, you'll be like flooded under like there can be only 1 or something like that, and you can just go to your battle phase, activate a runic spell, special summon this, crash this into their monster, and pop that back row, or, you know, just destroy whatever that floodgate is, and then you can play in main phase 2. The thing is with Jerry is you have to make sure you go to the battle phase and then activate the runic spell, because you skip the next battle phase that you try to conduct. So if you're already in it, then it skips the one after that, obviously. But this extra deck was solid overall. I never really missed anything. Initially, I was playing more, like, instead of these, I was playing, like, IP Unicorn, and I was playing Herald of, whatever the Herald Xyz is, Pure Light, I think, to, like, add back my hand traps and things like that. But I found that I really just didn't miss anything, and having these extra bodies that were just, like, able to be thrown out was really good. And also, one really cool thing, too, is that with the Hugin in particular, is that this forces a lot of negation because it just puts you really far ahead often. And even if they negate and destroy this, your normal summon effects, like your Swamp Frog and your Hyperia and things like that, tend to happen more often. And I found that that was just very valuable because this was a threat, and you could get further into the game without having to use a normal summon. And then finally, my side deck from last night was pretty reasonable. Am I missing a card? Interesting, I forgot a card. There it is. Okay, so So my side deck from last night's was 1 Red Resonator for going into time. Specifically, this would be for time if I'm going first. And I know that like my turn's going to take a while, because especially with the Runick cards and stuff, your turns actually take longer than they did prior. So I had that. I played 2 DD Crow, and then I played 3 Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. So this was something that the first time I played this card with time in mind was one of the remote dual YCSs when I had played Despia last year before all the branded, like all the good stuff came out. And the idea was that this would buy you turns, and I liked that line of logic again. So essentially, one of the only things that this deck can struggle with, and just Spright in general, is you need time. You need a chance to amass multiple pushes into negates and things like that, and Spooky Dogwood can give you that by just giving you an extra turn or 2. And also, if you're going second and time is coming up, you sign this in, and it gives you a chance to win in time, and this can overwhelm the Skullmark Ladybug, or the Aeromage Laurel, or the Red Resonator, things like that. It was actually just a really good card in general, and I was a big fan of it. I've been playing this for a little while now, and I've really liked it a lot. Then there was 3 Curse Seal the Forbidden Spell. In the Runick matchups, this can just shut down everything. This shuts down Mystic Mine, it can shut down the starters, it just shuts down a lot of stuff that puts your opponent in the ability either to shut you out of the game through like floodgates, or even just gives them the ability to play. Because if you're playing in like a Spright mirror match and you shut them out of starter, then that's 3 less good cards to draw in their deck, or 2 less good draws that they can have. If you shut them out of Smashers, that removes their removal, things like that. The last 6 cards were 3 Dimensional Barrier. This didn't really come up because I found that when I was going first, I was generally winning anyway. Like, I threw all of that stuff because I'd have like hand traps and the Runick stuff and things like that. So this might come out for like Solemn Judgment or something like that. I'm not really totally sure. This is just what I played last night. But in theory, this was supposed to be really good when I go first. And then I played 3 evenly matched for when I go second. This is my only removal card going second, and I found it was very good. I didn't want to play more spells to draw into an anti-spell, even though like Cosmic Cyclone and the Runick Destruction, that's 5 destruction cards for the back row, so there's a very high chance of drawing one going second. I just wanted to have trap cards that were also really good, because then also if in the tier limit matchup they're going to call a spell against me if they eradicated me, well, if I have evenly in my hand, they can eradicate me, and I can still just evenly them and potentially clear out the rest of their field, and then mount a comeback from there. So that was the deck overall. It was very solid. I just want to give a shout out to Jake Quincy for helping me a little bit, because this is very much so based off of his list, just with a couple of changes in mind. And to my friend Mike for talking through the Runick cards with me, because I had never read them before. I built this like Thursday night. And yeah, just let me know down below if you guys have any suggestions on like decks you want to see, or like any sort of content. I'm going to be doing a tech talk, I think once every other week, so that'll be something coming up. And yeah, have a wonderful day, guys.